It's the Marc Lee Show, bringing you enlightenment and culture.
All right, folks, once again, we are in tune right here on another Monday afternoon with the radio show with Marc Lee on IBM.TV. Of course, we got all kinds of great programs that happens here on a regular basis. I was really impressed with my friend Zach. When he did his show yesterday, he had a band called Rasta Funk, which makes both reggae and funk music and things of that nature. And they actually did a live performance as part of his show, Funk Music with Zach. So that was definitely a very enjoyable conversation, and definitely I know a lot of folks were out there checking that out on Sunday and really having a grand time and really enjoying everything that was going on in that particular show. And then, of course, we've also had other shows that are going on. As a matter of fact, earlier, just a matter of a few minutes ago, I was on our Economic Mondays. And, of course, that was some lively discussion. We had some folks from Australia, one gentleman from Australia. We had some folks from Canada by way of Russia. And, of course, we also had guests from all over the globe. That's what IBM.TV is all about. Ankit, one of our producers, is out of India, and he popped in, as did two of the founders, Nick and Kim. So it was definitely great having them on the show and having a very lively conversation with them about everything from the economics to everything else that is going on. I know that they had one person in from California also that was in on the that particular show, and they were just talking about all kinds of things that were happening and what was going on in the world. As a matter of fact, I just learned that California may be going back into the more extreme form of shutdown because of coronavirus, and apparently folks are not following the orders there. Unlike here, I see a lot of folks around Durham wearing their mask and doing what they're supposed to be doing, but unfortunately they're not doing that there in California. So the gentleman there that was representing, we actually had a couple of folks from California on the show, a young lady that is from China originally, but she is now a student there in California. Jim Ead, a good friend of mine, was there in the show, as well as Holmes. And I think Holmes is the one that's out of the LA area that was telling us that they're about to go into lockdown in very extreme form there in California. I hate to say that, but that is what they are about to be doing. So that's what's going on. And we've got some great folks that are joining us here on this particular panel, and I'm looking forward to bringing them into the show because I'm seeing that we've got a very powerful panel. But I want to bring in Billie. Billie is with the Bump Experiment, and I want to talk to Billie about what's going on with the Bump Experiment, how he came about that. One of the things I was teasing folks about, Billie, as I was doing the show, was I was telling, there was some lively discussion, definitely some back and forth, definitely some arguments. I mean, they were having it in a kind of way, but I jumped in there a couple of times and told them that they had to be a little bit kinder because I was going to have Billie on with the Bump Experiment. So definitely tell folks about the Bump Experiment and how you got involved in the Bump Experiment and what that's all about. Because it seemed to me that you had a moment where somebody was kind to you and you're trying to spread that word of kindness around the world. So I just love to hear a little bit more about the Bump Experiment and what that's all about.
Mark, it did. I was 61, or I'm 61 now, but I was 17 and was a senior in high school in Eastern North Carolina. I live in Atlanta now, but I received a note and it had $2,100 bills in it. And all the note said was, if you're ever in the position to do something for someone, be it of your time or money, do it without expecting anything in return. And it said, use for college, signed your guardian angel. I had no clue who gave me the money. When I was growing up, most of us or many of us did not go to college. We stayed home and you worked on farms or went to factories or whatever. And that allowed me, I got accepted to Chapel Hill. And that $2,000 way back then covered my first 2 years of college tuition at Chapel Hill. And I worked 3 jobs and worked my way through college. And I did not know who gave me that money out of a sense of gratitude. I always thought I was a nice guy growing up, but I always say that cursed me to be nice. I had no choice but to be nice the rest of my life because someone planted a seed of kindness that truly affected the rest and has affected the rest of my life. So I moved to Haiti and volunteered out of a sense of gratitude. And then I moved to Atlanta and I continued doing things for people just because I felt a sincere sense of obligation to give back. because somebody had done something for me. And I would keep coming home to my small hometown of Farmville, North Carolina. It's in eastern North Carolina. And I would come home and people would say, oh, Bump was asking about you, or if we'd seen you. And I came home quite frequently between college and in my first few years. And I thought to myself, why does Bump keep asking about me? Well, I had been in the same church as Bump, sat beside him in choir. Never occurred to me that it was Bump. And then finally it dawned on me, Bump was the postmaster in my hometown of Farmville, North Carolina. And Bump had the pulse of everybody of what was going on. I found out later that Bump had not only helped me, but a lot of people in emails. So anyway, I flew to an event about 6 or 7 years I was 26, 27. I don't remember exactly when, but I was at an event that Bump attended and made sure I was there. And that was the first time I had seen Bump in years. And I walked up and he was against these hedges at the event and he had a big smile on his face. I get emotional when I talk about this because in that moment, I walked up to Bump and I said, I know that it's you. And he started tearing up and he just had a big smile and we hugged. And I said, because of your kindness, I will help thousands of people in my lifetime with my time and money. So I continued doing that. And I would get people involved as I got older and pull people in. And I would find out about things locally and I'd find out about things globally and say, will y'all help me put a well in this city or country or city in Africa? And they say, sure. People would tell me about needs or locally we would find out about something. Finally, when I turned 50, I was 49, turning 50. Friends said, make this bigger. We're tired of you just pulling us into it. We don't mind helping, but you need to spread this word. So I said, give me a couple of days. Let me think about it. And I came up with the idea of the Bump Experiment, honoring Bump.
Wow.
So thus we have the Bump Experiment. We're going 12 years strong now. It is my.
And is Mr. Bump still living? Is the person that is representing that a person? I assume Bump was a nickname or something like that. But
his name was Bumpus Humphrey, and everybody in town called him Bump. And Bump would be 101 or 102, I believe, if he were still alive today. He died at 88.
Well, but you're carrying on his legacy. It's interesting that you say that because I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, Mona Sheikh. She's a Pakistani, if I remember correctly, Pakistani American who is a comedian. And she was talking about how when she first moved out from New York to LA, she had moved, I think her family originally from Pakistan. I'm not sure whether she was a baby or whether she's second generation. But when she moved from New York to LA, she was talking about the fact that when she got there, she was really low on her money. She had no idea where her money was coming from. And she went to her ATM machine. And when she put in the ATM machine, she said that she found, I think it was like $3,000 in the ATM machine. And she was sitting there very shaken by this. And she was like, this has got to be a mistake. The bank has made a mistake. I'm not going to go deal with this. I'm not going to get this money at all. So then she said that she walked away and then went back into the ATM, saw that it was still there. But she was still not believing that this was something that could happen to her. So she went back and she was still in the kind of crisis moment of like needing to get up, pay her rent, do other things. And she was definitely in that crisis moment. So she went back, I think she said the next day or 2 days later, and she went and withdrew some of the money to take care of her bills. To this day, she still does not know where that money came from, as from what I'm understanding of this story of hers. But that was one of them experiences where she just like needed the money, a guardian angel or somebody decided to put that money in that account, and that's what got her through. Because like I said, I think she said she had reached out to her parents, she had reached out to some others, but definitely had not had that and was at that crisis moment. And now she's actually doing well. She just did a big show this past weekend as part of her Minority Reports that she does. And then she does like these ongoing daily conversations. So she definitely can relate to what you're saying and everything. So definitely that was just amazing that she had that experience. And I know I've stumbled across, just recently as early this year, some money and things where I'm sometimes surprised, try to go out and try to figure out where the money's come from. And then I remember one time me and a friend went out and we were trying to find it because we had found some money. And then we even thought that we had found the owners of the money. But when we asked the gentleman, he was like, no, that's not mine. So we wound up using that money, and it definitely was a blessing to us. So it's just amazing how these things sometimes happen to us. We got some other guests, and I definitely want to bring them in and continue our conversation. But I want to bring in Jillian, our Mayor Pro Tem here in the Durham area. So she is definitely an activist and has been very much involved in the community and things of that nature. So definitely want to bring in Jillian. So definitely hoping that Jillian will lend us her insight as well.
Hey, Marc. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, glad to have you on, Jillian. So definitely, Jillian, if you would, tell folks a little bit about what you've got going on here in Durham. Of course, I was talking about California and how they're going and treating the coronavirus. I know that I think that I've even lost track of what stage we're in terms of our the mask and everything. I know that we're definitely encouraging everybody to wear masks here in this area. But the first question I've got is asking you, have you ever had those kind of experiences like Billie was talking about, where you just had like somebody bless you in your life that you were not expecting them to bless you? And how did you handle that? And then also, if you could share with us a little bit about what's going on in the Durham community and how we're coping with what's happening right now.
Yeah. So not as a surprise. I feel like the surprise aspect is pretty exciting if you have just a guardian angel out there who helps you out. But I've been fortunate to have lots of support from my family and friends, and a really strong community that has definitely helped me get through life. So yeah, I've been very fortunate, especially with the community that I have here in Durham. Been here now 20 years and don't think I'll ever leave, because, why would you ever leave Durham? Durham's the best. So yeah, and so in terms of, what Durham is doing to fight back against the coronavirus, we've been ahead of the game in a lot of ways, because we knew that as an urban area and as the federal prison at Butner, part of it is located in Durham County. We knew that there were concerns about an outbreak there. We have a number of homeless shelters and other, congregate living facilities that we wanted to make sure were being protected. So Durham, and initially off the bat was pretty aggressive with regard to coronavirus protections. We implemented a stay-at-home order before the state did. We implemented a mandatory masking rule before the state did, and that's been able to hold our numbers down. We still have pretty high numbers compared to the rest of the state, largely because there has unfortunately been a very serious outbreak at the federal prison in Butner, affecting hundreds of inmates. And there have been some pretty serious outbreaks in Durham as well, primarily at nursing homes. And then, of course, now as the virus has, gone on for so long, we've also seen some changes in who is being most impacted. So now we started off with a pretty heavy disparity in terms of Black folks. African Americans were more likely to get coronavirus. Now we're seeing that disparity multiplied for folks in the Latino community, who unfortunately are more likely to contract the virus because they work in essential jobs, are more likely to work in essential jobs where they're not given the option to work from home, or in situations where they're not able to access PPE. And so that's been a big priority for us and for our health department, to reach out to our Latinx community and make sure that people are being taken care of, because they do, unfortunately, right now have the highest rate of new infections in the city and county of Durham. So, we're continuing to work on it. We're still in phase 2, as the governor has declared that the state's in phase 2. Our school district recently decided not to return to in-person classes next month. All the classes will be remote for at least the first 9 weeks in order to protect the lives and the health and safety of students and staff, which is, of course, a really difficult decision. But I believe it was the best decision for our community. And now it's up to all of us to come together and make sure that kids who rely on things like school lunch, school breakfast, the kids who won't have parents who can help make sure that they get through their lessons will have the kind of community support that they need. And we continue to encourage everyone to wear masks when they're out in the community, especially when they're going to be inside a building. The rate of transmission inside is about 20 times the rate of transmission outside. That doesn't mean that you should let your guard down when you're outside, but when you're inside a building with other people, you're definitely more at risk. And so encouraging folks to wear their masks, to stay 6 feet away from people whenever they can, basic, sanitizing, hand washing procedures, all that stuff, so that we can slow the spread, but we know in the end, the best hope for getting through this pandemic is a vaccine.
Yep,
And
definitely.
so
And I
we're
want to bring
waiting
in
for that.
one of our other guests as well, and that's my good friend Sreenivisan. Sree has definitely been involved in a number of things. He is involved in with the Digital Mentors Group. He's actually the creator of that, and he's done some other just amazing things around the area. He actually does a daily COVID talk and has some great guests in that conversation that happens on a regular basis. I was actually had the privilege of being on his show talking about what allies can do in this whole struggle, because he is, as you can tell, of Indian American descent. So definitely wants to talk about ways that the allies can be involved. And Jillian, I know that that's something that you've also been very much involved with, is the ways that all of us can definitely work, whether it's on this issue or whether it's on other issues as well. So welcome here, Sree. Definitely glad to have you here on the show and glad that you were able to join me.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I've heard so much about the show. Glad to be on this side and to say hello to Jillian and our friend from the Bump Experiment. I was so excited to hear about that. And Jillian's got the purple on, so we're good. We got to get the Bump color t-shirts in purple too. Paisley Park, I love it. I love it. Yeah, look, even my pen is purple here.
Nice.
So, yeah, exactly.
Tell folks, because you're still over there at Fire Island, if I remember correctly.
No, we're back in Manhattan. I'll
Manhattan.
show everybody. Why just talk? We'll show. So I'm on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. If you folks know your New York City, so I'm going to show you New York how you've never seen it. Over there, you see the Hudson River, and New Jersey is over there. And this is this famous skyline of New York. You can see that a little bit. And if you look down, look at how empty the streets of New York are. And we're on phase 4, and it's still pretty empty on a weekday. Look at that.
Yeah, lots of people working from home still.
Yeah, working from home, also wearing masks. It's like so important and so simple thing that we could do. All of us wear masks and stay alive. And we're so worried about North Carolina. We've seen the terrible numbers for Florida and North Carolina together. And we feel for you, and we are holding good thoughts for all of you.
Thank you. Yeah, we got to get our folks on board. Got to wear the masks. Got to stay home whenever you can. It's good to see a lot of our school districts are choosing not to open in person, but there are a lot of universities, colleges and universities, that are bringing people back to campus in just a couple of weeks. So yeah, it's scary. It's scary times. You know, we all gotta work together to get through this. Everyone needs to think about the community.
What were you saying, Billie?
I have a saying I've been promoting during this time of mask it up and bump it up. Because Georgia is showing its highest numbers right now. And unfortunately, people are not still getting the message. And people don't realize we are putting our essential workers, healthcare workers, at risk. And we need to remind people it's just out of kindness. I have a saying that everybody deserves kindness, respect, and equality. It's out of kindness that we wear masks to protect the other people. And you know, people still don't get the message. And somebody said it's going to take a tipping point. And I said, really? Do we really have to reach a tipping point to care? I hope not.
One way to think about this is, folks, remember Richard Reed, the shoe bomber who tried to light his shoe on fire? He didn't actually kill anybody. Nothing happened, if you remember. And with that, we changed the entire airport security system in this country. You have to take off your shoes. Like, all of that happened because of one guy, and nobody died. 140,000 people have died, and people are still reluctant to do anything. So the sheer difference in the approach and attitude is getting people killed. And it's so sad to see. It's great to have government leaders like Jillian who are speaking the truth and understand science and facts, and all of this makes such a big difference. So thank you for both of you for promoting masks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Jillian, would you also talk a little bit, because I know that Sree's very big on this, about the Black Lives Matter movement? Because one of the things that Sree always says on his show is the fact that we're in the middle of 3 crises. We're in the economic crisis, we're in the health crisis, and then we're in the crisis around race relations. And I know that there's been a lot of stuff around that here in Durham, a lot even involving around the defund the police movement and things of that nature. So I would love to hear some of your take on that, because I think some people even get confused as to what people mean when they say defund the police. And I'd like to hear some of your take on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of people get confused because people mean different things, right? Like not everybody who uses that slogan means the same thing when they say it. I actually just got back from a demonstration that our Fight for 15 chapter held here in Durham today at the McDonald's as part of a national mobilization called Strike for Black Lives. Because the majority of Fight for 15's workers, the majority of fast food workers in our country are people of color, are Black and Latino. Majority women, right, and are making some of the lowest wages of any workers in our country. And so their message was, if Black lives matter, if you care about Black lives, then you need to pay your workers what they need to survive. I think that this movement has grown in strength and in it's just become so much broader and so much more well-known in the community just over the last few weeks, which has been really exciting to see. It's been great to see the work that activists have been doing in cities all over the country to really fight back against some of the abuses that we've seen by police departments around the country, and to call for a really transformative change to our system. Here in Durham, there are a couple of things that we've been working on for a while. Last year, we agreed to create a community safety and wellness task force that would bring members of our community together to talk about ways that we can handle community crisis response without relying on policing. And so we're working on getting that task force to be joint with our county and our school board. Our school board has agreed to join, and we're waiting for the county to agree to join. And then we'll be able to work with community members from across the community to think about ways that we can engage people in coming up with solutions that don't involve policing. We'll be asking them to think about alternative crisis response systems like exist in a few cities. There's a program in Eugene, Oregon that's been operating for almost 30 years that people are studying that sends unarmed crisis like service workers, social workers to respond to crises that don't need to involve police. There are a couple of cities that are looking at sending unarmed responders to traffic issues, traffic accidents, to direct traffic, monitor traffic if needed, all those sorts of things. So people are really exploring ways that we can keep our community safe without using policing. And that will allow us to shift resources that are being used up now by policing into other areas of community support that we know that we really need. Police budgets have been growing across the country in a time when lots of other budget items are shrinking. And so I think it's really important to take a look at what police are doing, what we want police to do, what do we need police to do, to what do we not want them to do, and how can we assign that work to other people in the community who can do it better and can do it without the risk of exposing people to the larger states, like the larger aspects of state, like incarceration, court dates, all the ways that people get trapped in, this criminal legal system that if they don't enter in the first place, they don't have to worry about. And then all the residual consequences of that, if you have a conviction or even a charge on your record, sometimes it's hard to find a job, it's hard to find housing, it's hard to get your life back together. And so making sure that people have more options, that we're not putting people in situations where it's going to make it really hard for them to survive in the future. So yeah, we're trying to move that work forward in Durham. I'm excited to see it move forward around the country.
And Sree, actually, that's one of the things that I know. I think your guests this evening are going to be coming in from Portland, and they're going to be talking about some of the tragedies that were happening there in the Portland area, because it sounds like there were some very bad ways of police state kind of actions that were going on in Portland. So tell a little bit about what that was and what the show will be this evening.
Sure. Thank you. So our show is a daily global show where we talk about those three crises. We talked about the health, financial, and racial inequality crisis, and it's all kind of coming to a head in Portland, of all places. In some ways, it's so different from a lot of the other places because almost everything happening there, all the players there are white, and they're there. There's a small but vibrant African American community that has been leading some of the protests, but this kind of lockdown protest that's happening now, where you've seen unmarked cars come in and people just get picked up and thrown in them and taken away. Like, that doesn't happen in America. You have an obligation to tell people who you are when you arrest somebody. Journalists have an obligation to reveal ourselves to you. We can't just pretend we're not a journalist and kind of just chat with you and then take notes and publish it. same way, the obligation's higher on the police. So we have been saying on my show every single day, we've been live for 131 days today through the pandemic and the lockdown in New York, that we want police. We're not saying no police. We're saying make sure that the police have the added funds they need, but the de-escalation tactics that you just heard about from Jillian, brilliant, right? Like reduce the chances of escalation and send them in for the things that they really are good at and are able to deliver, because we want to be safe. No one's asking for more crime. No one's saying, there are some people saying abolish the police. Even there, they mean reconstitute the police. But those are the words that are used if we used against those same protesters. I like to talk about climate change versus global warming. If 30 years ago they had used global climate change instead of global warming, then every time it snows, the president couldn't say, hey, look, it's snowing. Where's the global warming now? Right? Like that's the use of words matter. And you remember how the Republicans called it death taxes and death panels? They're really good at labeling things, and that has consequences in how people are thinking.
Mark, can I jump in and say something? I definitely agree, Sree. There's one thing that words have power, and I remind people of that all the time. And a word I wish we would do away with is defunding and call it reallocating to help people with needs. And I'll tell you something else, and Jillian, it was interesting. I recently I ran a red light pre-COVID. I was hoarse, going to have to speak, and I needed to get some honey and stuff for my throat. And I sat at the stoplight indefinitely, like 10 minutes. And the guy pulled me over for running the red light. It's midnight. So I ended up in court 30 days later, and I pleaded not guilty. And right before my case came up, there was a black woman by the name of Mary, but it was just a woman. And Mary got up, a senior citizen on a fixed income that delivered papers that had gotten a ticket for something, and she had pled guilty. And the judge said that had fined her. It was $160, $70 plus $25, $30 of fees on top of it. Mary broke down crying. And I stood up in court, and I said, Your Honor, may I address the court? And he says, you may. And I said, I'd like to pay Mary's fine, because I've never had this happen in all my years. I said, Your Honor, there's a first time for everything. And he asked me why, and I said, somebody stepped in and did something for me. And I said I had to take. I said Mary needs to be out delivering papers and not worried about working off a fine or $25 probation fees. So she said, "Wow!" After I told my couple of stories, and he called me up next. My last name is Von Schultz. He goes, "I can't pronounce his last name." He goes, "Policeman has already said you stayed at that stoplight forever." And he had written on my ticket "broken light." And I'm thinking he was talking about my car, but he was actually talking about the light. I don't believe in luck or coincidence. I say life is about an openness. And the good Lord put me in the path of Mary and to be there for Mary on that day. And a friend said, but you still ended up paying $180, so they dismissed you. And I said, but you missed the point of the story. And we have a DA here that represents us in my county, to prosecute for the county. And the county said, can I speak to that man before he leaves? And he walked out and he said, because when I left, everybody stood up and said, bless you. Thank you, my brother. And I just said, you're welcome. And the DA, who was black, said, Billie, you have no idea what you just did for race relations. I said, I didn't do that for race relations. I did it for Mary. And I said, so long we get stuck on labels. And I joke that people see me as an older white man or whatever they see, but I'm part of a minority of the LGBTQ community. Last night I attended a Black Lives youth art auction. I'm very much involved, and I tell people in conversations, because I still remember growing up in a very segregationist society where I tell everybody, I say it all the time, everybody deserves kindness, respect, and equality. And as long as we're talking about conversations, though, we've got to work on policy change. We still need to change the culture on a policy level where women, minorities on all levels, I don't care who you are, everybody deserves the same pay for the same work. And we need that to happen at a corporate level so that starts making changes. And I think we have finally reached a moment of change. And I think there's no turning back. And so for the first time in my life, I see all people out holding up signs that says Black Lives Matter. But I can tell you, I wish everybody could come visit my neighborhood in Decatur, Georgia, because I live in what somebody just said, this is a gem in the universe. and they came trying to look in my neighborhood. It's about 150 homes. Good luck trying to put 2 homes of those 150 homes together, because we are pink, yellow, black, white, gay, straight, polka dot, believers, non-believers, Indian, Pakistani, Muslim. You just can't put 2 houses together. And I always use a Maya Angelou quote, love it, that says, as humans, we're more alike than different, but we keep forgetting that. And I tell people, if we take long enough to talk to one another, we're going to find out that we have something in common. But if we don't talk, we're never going to find out the differences, and it's from different cultures. And people look at us and go, y'all are so different in that community, but you get along. And I go, folks, y'all are looking from the outside in. We see each other from the inside out.
Well, Jillian, I was wondering, I want to bring in Eric in as well. Eric is a fellow podcaster, and he's also been involved in everything from sports to everything else in terms of being a fan of sports. But want to bring Eric in. But just if you would talk about how the movement is definitely one that is cross-cultural, because that's one of the things that I've loved about what's going on with Black Lives Matter, is that it definitely seems to be multicultural. I'm seeing a lot of our young people doing a lot more great work, as many folks here on this show know, and as some of Shree's friends know and others know. I'm late 50s, but even folks that are in your age range are starting to step back and letting some of these 20-year-olds take over. So I was just wanted to know what some of your thoughts are about the diversity of the movement.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been really great to see a lot of new faces, a lot of new people get involved in this movement, and really, really want to be out in the streets pushing for change. Even with this pandemic, even with all of the, the economic issues and other concerns, and this real sense of like unpredictability about the future, especially I think for young people right now, like with climate change we were just talking about, and now with COVID and with all of the social and political issues that we're going through. I think people just have a lot of concern and a lot of feelings of uncertainty about what the future holds, and especially for young folks to be out in the streets, masked, of course, and socially distanced, really fighting for a better world has been really inspiring. And I wouldn't say that I'm like quite an old head yet, but I have been doing, I've been doing this work now for about 20 years. And so there are, folks coming into this movement who are 20 years younger than me, a completely different generation, very different life experiences, have grown up knowing, I think, so much more than I did growing up in the 80s and 90s, how much of a threat climate change is to their future, and have been radicalized by that in a way, have been politicized by that in a way that my generation was not. I remember looking at, those little like scholastic book reports about global warming and like the hole in the ozone layer and all these environmental issues, but they didn't become real, I think, until the science on climate change became so clear and so like irrefutable. And these kids grew up knowing that this was going to be their future, that this level of seriousness, right? And so they take that level of seriousness into other aspects of their lives with the, fight against gun violence in schools, and now the Black Lives Matter movement. We've seen young people really taking the lead in an exciting way, and pushing movements, pushing the older generations to move more quickly, to move with more intentionality, to make changes happen now, not tomorrow. And so that's been really exciting to see. And here in Durham, there are a lot of new people who are just getting involved, who are getting engaged. And it's been really exciting to see the movement grow. I mean, we're going to need everybody if we're going to win. So I'm always excited to see more people coming into the movement. And, we need to meet people where they are and welcome them in, and make sure that we, are all working together, that we're all working for the same thing. And so how do we work together to make sure that we win the change that we need?
Definitely. And by the way, Stephen Kaplan, who's a friend of both me and Shree's, was actually making some comments. He said that his thoughts are with everyone. It's mind-boggling at this point that people are not getting the life or death importance of wearing a mask. And he also said that everyone had better pay attention to what's taking place in Portland, Oregon, because he was saying that this type of black ops policing is terrifying, and we are not supposed to worry about those who are supposed to protect us. And if I remember correctly, and Sree can correct me, but I think that his mom was one of the first police officers, women police officers in the New York area. Am I saying that correctly, Sree?
Yeah, he was. His mom was a wonderful police officer. One of the first women to carry a gun on the streets of New York and on patrol in the early 70s. And so he's the son of a police officer and understands that police officers are held to a higher standard. I'm the son-in-law of a police officer. He was the police chief in India. And we always talk about this, that everybody wants good police. We need the police to hold the peace and protect the community, but they have to be from the community and care about the community. What you're seeing right now in Portland is atrocious, and we'll be talking about it tonight at 9 p.m. on my social channels, on Twitter, Facebook, etc.
Mark, there's a statistic out that we don't hear about, but I find that's an anomaly that we don't address. And the first thing is, I would say, guess, y'all, which profession has the highest percentage for empathy, for kindness? What professions? It's teaching, it's nursing. Guess which profession, when taking personality tests, that does not score us on our sexual orientation, ethnicity, or other biases. It's just asking us general questions. Guess which profession attracts the highest level of aggressive behavior and bullying? It's policing. I was shocked when I learned that. So why can't we recruit people that have some kindness and empathy? Because when I was growing up, we knew our police. I love the idea that I heard proposed that police would have a 6-month or 3-month probationary period within a neighborhood or an area, and then the people would vote on the police if they get a badge and a gun. I love that idea that we actually engage the community to build the trust. And I think, Jillian, you hit on a comment. There's one thing, Dr. Bernice King, the daughter of Reverend King here in Atlanta, made a comment on a panel that, and I think it's so true about the heart now. She said it's going to take a lot of heart work to do the hard work. And I think finally, as a nation and hopefully globally, we realize it's time to open up our hearts and do the hard work that needs to be done.
Yeah, definitely. I want to bring Eric into the conversation as well. Eric, I met when he was doing stand-up comedy and doing some great comedy work. He's now I believe a parent, so he's kind of pulled back from some of that comedy work, but he's still a fan of comedy and improv, and he is also definitely a sports fan. And I know that a lot of what's going on in the world now is that we're trying to see whether sports can reopen during this time. So I was just wondering what some of your thoughts are in terms of that. I know that baseball had a couple of preseason matches, and they playing in front of empty crowds, which I just find not to be. I don't know how you can watch a game and be in front of an empty crowd, because that to me just kind of like defeats the purpose. But I understand they might be putting some cutout figures and things of that nature. Me and Jillian are here in Durham. Unfortunately, the Bulls are not playing. Minor league baseball around the country isn't playing. So, and Jillian's giving me that sad look like she really likes going to the game. So
I do. I love the Bulls games.
They are fun. And I, as the least impressive person on this panel, it's yeah, and thanks for going from, hey, how do we fix policing to, do you think we'll have baseball? That's a good segue.
We all need a little joy in our lives. Right?
Yeah, Saturday, I was flipping through the channels, and I was weirdly blown away that I was watching the Mets and the Yankees, and it was a live game. Because I've been sustaining on South Korean baseball and marble racing. That's like all I've been getting from sports. And Cornhole Championship. They had the Cornhole Championship. That's all I've had for sports. So, man, I hope it comes back. Like, people need to wear masks just so I can see if Tom Brady can get it done in Tampa Bay. If nothing else, let's just see if he can do it. Or if he gets hit and turns into dust the first time he gets hit behind the line.
Yeah, he might get turned into dust, things of that nature. And I agree, because actually I did have a little bit of a sports moment last week. There was the tournament that was going on that was involving all-star kind of players. It was the TBT tournament, and I'm a Marquette graduate, and the Golden Eagles, their alumni, actually won that game. So I'm waiting to get an email, because supposedly I'm supposed to get a little bit of cash. It won't be nowhere near what the players got. I think that the email said that it might be $88. Coming back to the bump experiment and getting some sort of windfall cash. It's supposed to be, I think, somewhere like $88 for those fans of us that voted for the Marquette team. So we're hoping to get our little check. The players actually split $1 million. And the interesting thing was they split $1 million when it was $2 million last year. And the reason it was went from 2 million to 1 million is because they spent $1 million on making sure that they didn't have that many cases, because they were playing in a bubble like the NBA is going to try to do, like some other players are going to try to do. And since they were doing that, they spent $1 million excuse me, on trying to do the cleaning. So that was cleaning the microphones, that was cleaning the doing the separation of 6 feet of distance, and doing a lot of other things, and then doing the constant testing. So I know Johns Hopkins was helping with that, and like I said, $1 million was what they spent on making sure that could happen. That's even, and I'd like to hear from everybody what I'm concerned about with schools, because I am of a big, I know that students would like to go back to class. I know that teachers would like to be teaching in class, but I don't think that they want to do it unless they're safe. And if it took them $1 million for a small basketball tournament, I think it was like maybe 28 teams or something like that, to clean that up, I can only imagine what a whole city or a whole state would cost to do the kind of cleaning that might be needing to happen if we're going to get the kids back into actual classrooms.
Oh, there's no way, you know. I mean, we're talking about defunding the police, right? For the last 10 years in North Carolina, 10 or so years, we've been defunding public education to an extreme degree. We went from, you know, something like 27th in teacher pay to 49th. And, you know, I'm a public school parent. I have 2 kids in public schools, and we are always being asked for resources to help the school. Like when we start school in the fall, we're providing Lysol wipes and tissues and, you know, snacks. Like parents and teachers are buying this stuff out of pocket. The kind of equipment that we would need to open schools safely would require a serious investment in public education that our state and federal government have shown themselves that they are completely unwilling to make. And so until that happens, until those resources are provided to classrooms, it's going to be completely unsafe for kids, for teachers, for staff, for everyone. So if we really want kids to go back to school, the federal government and the state government needs to put up some money. Put up some money if you really want to see, you know, these buildings become safe for children. If schools are the critical part of the economy that we've always known they are, if our national leaders believe that, then it's time for them to show it with some serious funding for public education.
Yeah, definitely. And Sree, I'd like to hear from you what you think about social media and how that plays into the whole conversation, because I am a big fan of social media. I know you're a big fan of social media, but unfortunately, I think that person that's sitting there in D.C. spends a little bit too much time on his social media feed and says a lot of needless and
we call it executive
things.
Time. Don't forget, we call it executive time, where he's watching TV and tweeting away.
Yes, but I just think that he does way too much of it and does too much of nonsensical kind of things that he's saying. I mean, some of the things that he's saying, I'm reading them and I'm thinking that like I'm watching Eric or one of my comedian friends, because some of the things he's saying are actually very comical, even more so than the actual comedians.
It's why I stopped doing stopped doing comedy, because he was funnier with his real life tweets than I am anything I could make up. I literally every day I go, this is real. Oh God, this is terrible. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
That's really is a problem for everything we're trying to do in the country. I think social media has so much good it can do, but we've also seen the issues. Like part of the reason why I'm so upset about everything that's going on is obviously the 140,000 deaths and the millions of cases of people who are sick. But also think about the vaccine. If and when we get it, how the heck are we going to make sure everybody takes it? There are people who have been brainwashed into thinking vaccines are bad, and they're partly because of the president, partly because of Jenny McCarthy, and partly because of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right? So this is not a political thing. This is people who are misguided about science and are forcing their beliefs on everybody. I mean, we have the measles is back, because there are other diseases and illnesses that we have worked so hard to get rid of or are almost on the brink of extinction, and they come back because of a lack of awareness, knowledge, understanding of science. And that's what's been devalued in this society, and it's so tragic. And that's when it comes from the highest office in the land. I'll just say that about Florida. Just look at what's happening in Florida, where the governor is not putting in a mandate, and in Billie's home state of Georgia, you've got the governor is saying not only is he not putting a mandate, he's reversing mandates that are local, and he's suing the mayor of Atlanta to remove the mandate she's put in. Let people have a mask. That's all it'll take. At the CDC, speaking of Atlanta, the director of the CDC said, if we all wear masks for 6 to 8 weeks, we can stop this thing. But every day that we're not doing that, we're going to extend and make it worse. So there's no way all of us are wearing masks for 6 to 8 weeks starting today, right? It's impossible because there's no mandate. So how the heck will we do this going forward? I'm so worried for all of us and worried for our country.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
There's something, I keep the bump experiment very apolitical. So everybody's always trying to figure me out. The friends know where I stand because kindness knows, no, I don't care if you don't vote. If you vote, I hope you vote. Or if you're Republican or Democrat. And that's part of social media and everything of the divisiveness. So I would say things like, we need from an executive level, we have the tools to be successful. You give people the tools to succeed, then it's up to them to be successful. The CDC has given us the tools to be successful, the science behind it. We need, from a national level, these are the tools, folks. We know that we can get back to being better and working. It frustrates me that people are saying, well, we have a right not to wear a mask or we want to remain working. Well, folks, you can't have your cake and eat it too. We know that by social distancing, wearing masks, washing our hands, doing the things to set us up for success, we've been given those tools. Now it's for us to be successful. However, from our governors, from our local leaders, our state leaders, our national leaders, we need for them to help us achieve that success. And when we're not giving those directives and or demonstrating, I think the best thing that we can do is to see our leaders wearing masks all the time. And again, folks, when we talk about wearing masks, we're not talking about wearing masks 7/24. We're talking about when we're close together, because unfortunately, still in Atlanta, this weekend, every weekend I drive down by Piedmont Park just to get a glimpse in the truck. I would say this weekend, 1/3 of the people, I don't care what their ethnicity, what their sexual orientation, I don't care if they're pink, yellow, black, white, polka dot, 1/3 of them weren't wearing masks. And we know that that's going to be disastrous. And forget that people keep talking about more people are testing positive. Well, that just means we need to ramp up wearing your mask. Wear your mask when you're in a group. You don't have to do it when you walk by yourself, but it's like, folks, this isn't rocket scientists, and we've got to pay attention to science.
Definitely. And Jillian, if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that you actually have that kind of background because you definitely, I know you went to Duke, and a lot of that was more like being trained in public policy and things of that nature. But I believe your partner is actually involved in the science field, if I remember correctly.
He is. Well, he's a mathematician, so not a lab scientist. But I think that we both have a healthy respect for data, a healthy respect for perceiving reality through a scientific lens, and it's just been really scary over the last few weeks. With the COVID pandemic, to see how many people choose to ignore the science, or choose to ignore very clear evidence that of what we need to do to try to stop the spread, to try to get us out of this mess, and to politicize something like wearing a mask, like an incredibly simple public health intervention that anyone can do, without any risk, to turn that into a political issue it's just completely irresponsible. And so, I agree. Like we're in a situation where we're in some trouble, but we have to have our political leaders, our cultural leaders, right, our social and civic leaders, to be out modeling the correct behavior, and making sure that people know this. This isn't a political question, but it is life and death, right? It's even more important than a lot of these political issues that we like bicker over for no reason, right? Like, wear a mask and you're saving lives. Don't wear a mask, you're putting yourself and your whole community at risk.
Jillian, I see you have that on your Twitter account. I'm looking at Jillian Durham, and right there is your name is a mask.
Oh yeah, My little mask emoji. Yeah.
I love it.
Spread the word any way you can, right?
Yeah, definitely. Jillian, I just wanted to hear, and I'd like to hear from everybody, particularly both you and, well, actually you, my friend from the Bump Experiment, as well as Sree. But another issue that I know a lot of people are very much concerned about is gentrification. And definitely that's what's going on here, and things of that nature is happening in Atlanta, is happening in New York. It's definitely something that the Black Lives Matter folks have definitely brought as one of their issues. But I just want to hear a little bit from everybody what their perspective is of gentrification, because I know on one of our other shows here on IBM.TV, they're talking about the fact that we're in a building boom, and I haven't seen that. I've even seen a lot of buildings happening around the triangle, but then I'm also wondering who are we putting in these buildings that we're going to be creating the buildings, because even some of the apartments we've got aren't filled. I know that even here, because of the COVID, and some people, I'm here near Duke's campus, and a lot of folks left. So even here, some of the people are not in their apartments, and the apartments aren't filled. So when I see new apartments going up, I'm like, why are we building new apartments when we haven't filled the ones that we've got?
Yeah, I mean, I think in Durham, we have grown really quickly over the last 20 years or so. The economic downturn that we're seeing now because of the pandemic might slow that down a little bit, might actually result in fewer people moving to Durham and less activity. So we'll see, right now there's definitely been, there's certainly less economic activity overall, but I'm not sure whether that's hit the construction industry yet. We'll kind of have to wait and see. But a lot of those apartment buildings are filling up quickly because Durham is such a desirable place, and we're part of this national trend of people moving from the Northeast and the Midwest to the Southeast and the Southwest. There's a national migration that's happening that Durham is just kind of in the bullseye of. Another thing I've been thinking about is whether the shift to remote work will actually cause more migration, because people who right now might work in a city like New York or Chicago, but find it really difficult and expensive to live there. If their job is remote, then they can move to a place with lower cost of living. Of course, the more people that move to a place with lower cost of living, the higher the cost of living gets. And so that's that's kind of the double edge of this, situation that we're in Durham with gentrification. Growth has benefited our community in a lot of ways, and it's harmed our community in a lot of ways. And like most social issues, it often harms those people who have the least to begin with, right? People who already couldn't afford their apartments are now struggling even more to be able to afford a place to live. And housing has, of course, been the biggest issue in Durham, and I think in a lot of communities, housing costs and rising housing costs. And that has a fundamental impact on your quality of life. If you can't afford decent housing, the spiraling impacts of that are huge. So yeah, we struggle with this every day in Durham. We just passed a $95 million housing bond, the biggest bond ever in the state of North Carolina, to invest in affordable housing and public housing. And so, we're doing a lot, but the economic engine, the economic forces that we're seeing we don't have the power really to fight them. We don't have the authority from either the federal or the state government to really intervene in the market in the way that we would have to preserve affordability and continued accessibility of housing. So we're kind of just doing the best we can with the limited tools that we have access to.
That makes a lot of sense. So, Sree, you ready to move to Durham, North Carolina from New York, or are you having too much fun there in New York? Because you thoroughly enjoyed your New York living.
But I tell you, I love visiting North Carolina. I've not been to Durham, but I've been to other parts, and look forward to visiting you one day.
I look forward to having you come and visit me and seeing Jillian, and also meeting some of the other great people that we have here in the community. There are definitely some amazing folks here that are doing some great work, and I'm definitely impressed by what you've done. Just like I told you before, even on your show, I remember that I was mentioning to Pat Murray, who is a local news media person here in our area. She runs the Durham Skywriter, that I knew you, and she was just automatically impressed because she follows digital media, follows what's going on, and she was going like, Sree? And I'm like, yeah, I've known Sree for a while, so definitely was glad to be able to tell her that and share that with her. So definitely you have that kind of reputation around the area.
Thank you. I would just say to everybody, just look at the power of this, right? For folks who didn't know each other except through Marc, now we're connected. I'm already following folks here, and love that what technology has done. Now let's use it for good. I love what Billie is doing with the Bump Experiment. I want to learn more. I would love to talk to all of you. So let's keep in touch, please.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely glad to have you on here. Definitely want you to have that kind of thing of being able to keep in touch and share our stories and all of that. Billie, tell us a little bit more about what kind of current things the Bump Experiment is doing, because like I said, you've been doing this for a number of years, so I'd love to hear some of the current projects that the Bump Experiment is involved with.
Mark, let me say first, the Bump Experiment is my passion. It is not how I always joke that my back pocket, my work funds the Bump Experiment. I'm not a nonprofit. I always tell people I think there's an obligation of all people as we make more money that we give back more money. But I also tell people that many times we equate acts of kindness, whether it's our time or our money. I'm no more impressed if you give $1 or you give 10 million, or if you let somebody in front of you when you're driving, or like I go to Haiti for 3 months, or you spend your whole life. It's just the fact that in that moment you help somebody. And I always tell people it only takes one person to care. I actually adopted a homeless man. I say adopted. I avoided him for 2 weeks because I keep spending time. I always run late for things because I always get involved. And I kept seeing him at the side of a Sprouts. And finally I said, if not me, then who? Because I figured out soon that he wasn't waiting on a lift because he was so quiet, no signs. And so Keith and I are now tight, and I make sure he has pocket change, and I am his safety net. Affordable housing, man, I'm passionate about trying to help people with housing. I think economics, you set people up for success. Education is the key to helping everybody get better jobs, better housing. Food insecurity is huge here. I'm very active with food insecurity, with homeless, with food pantries. I encourage people with the Bump Experiment to get involved. Your hello might be the only hello that person gets all day long. So don't discount what you do. So I continually spread the message of the Bump Experiment. I can tell you I walk the walk and talk the talk. I invest in people because I believe people are our best investment. We joke that I finally got an iPhone 11 because I sent it to somebody who needed it, and I had an iPhone 6 because they're stuck in a facility where they can't talk with their family right now. So this allows them, you know what, I don't need a whole lot. I buy my Nikes at Marshall's. I like Nikes, but I'm not going to spend $150 for a pair of Nikes. But I can tell you I treat $50 and $100 bills like Band-Aids. I work hard for my money, but I can tell you what, I can't solve all the problems of the world, but I can put a Band-Aid on a situation. And I can tell you there was a woman in our Kroger the other night that I heard her tell her 2 kids, but don't cry on this one. I heard her 2 kids say, we want this, this, and this when we get home. And I heard the mom say, remember, mom's not working, and I don't know when we can come back to the grocery store. I hung out because I'm in front of this woman. I've got my mask on. And when it came time to pay for her bill, I paid for her bill. And that was probably a chunk of her money for the month. And that woman just broke down crying. She goes, what did you just do? I said, I'm going to make sure I run into you again, hopefully in the next week or 2. And she just said, you have no idea. I said, yes, I do, ma'am. I picked up bottles on the side of the road for a nickel. It takes only one person to care. Most of the people that I do things for will never know my name. Sometimes I'll pose as the person delivering just because I like to see the surprise on their face. But most of the time, they're going to get a phone call, they're going to get a letter, or I do things spontaneously. And I help everybody. However, I disproportionately help people who are struggling. And I put myself in places, I don't have a comfort zone. I'm all over the place. I don't care what you do for a living, where you live, what you drive. Just tell me what you do to make a difference. And it only takes one person, just one investment, and you make a ripple and you create a wave. I'm very passionate about this because if everybody would do just a little, it doesn't take a few people doing a lot. And when I'm purple and I help somebody pink and somebody says, purple, no offense, I've got purple on. I go, when a purple person, I'm helping them and I'm helping somebody that's got on polka dots, they're going to go out and say, well, purple people aren't nice. And I go, well, I disagree because this purple person helped me today. And it opens us up. It opens us up. And I always tell people there's far more good that goes on in this world than bad. But yet, the first thing we do by the news is we judge the quality of our lives by the misery of others. And I tell people when you talk about the car, you say, well, I'm behind the car payment, but I heard you got repoed last week, so I guess I'm doing okay. Folks, that's not how you judge the quality of your life. The quality of your life is your thankfulness. You might not have the best job, but you have a job. And I think the biggest equalizer during this COVID time has made people realize that the middle class is vulnerable. They've never felt this vulnerable before. So now they're getting a taste of what it's like for people who deal with homelessness, food insecurity, that wonder that live paycheck to paycheck. Well, let's make things equal. Let's make everything an equal playing field. And when one group benefits, we all benefit. And if we all...
Oh, yeah, definitely. Billie, I just wanted to cut in real quick. I do want you to finish that thought because I definitely love what you're saying. But Shree's got a bounce on me and everything. But I just wanted to, before he leaves, and we'll continue the conversation, I would love to hear any final thoughts that Shree's got to share. And one of the things that I know that Shree's very passionate about, and I heard it yesterday, and I would love to hear it if you can give it the short version, is the role of how the allies can help us, because I did hear your conversation yesterday, and I would love to hear you talk about that really quickly. I do know you've got to get to your other calls. Sree is like the busiest man in the world, so definitely want to hear his comments.
Thank you, Marc. Just very quickly, I'm so honored to be here with you and to meet all these terrific people, and I hope we can keep in touch. I think allies have to pay attention, listen, and support in every way we can. It is not up to Black folks to help us understand their pain. We have to understand it. Our good friend Sunny Slaughter, when I had her on my show, she's a DC-based activist and businesswoman. She said, don't ask your Black friends what you can do. Ask yourself, what have you been doing all these years? And if you haven't been doing anything, fix it. And we all have ideas. There's all ways in which we can help. You don't have to be politically active in order to help. Just help people, and I love what Billie's doing and everybody else too. I'm going to jet. Thank you so much. You have my email address. You see it on my screen. You have my Twitter handle. If I can help anybody with anything, please get in touch, and we'll see you all in New York City at some point.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You always tell people, don't just talk to talk, walk to walk.
Nice.
There's a big difference. Actions speak louder than words.
Love it.
Yep. Now, I'm sorry that I had to cut you off there a little bit, but if you want to finish that thought, Billie, then definitely go ahead and finish that thought. But I didn't know that Sree had told me that he was about to get off, so I had to cut in on you.
Marc, it's just the fact that I always try to tell people it only takes one person to care. Being part of the LGBTQ community, I've seen where you could be fired from your job because of that sexual orientation. You could be kicked out of your apartment. If you had a loved one in the hospital, you could be told, regardless of your time with that person, that you could be kicked out of the room. I get it. My Black friends have said, well, do you really understand what it's like when by policemen? I said, oh, yeah, I remember back in the day living in Atlanta that you did not walk by yourself in town because you might get jumped. I don't know if any of y'all know, but there's a young man who lost his life that was put on a barbed wire and killed. His name was Matthew Shepard. He was killed simply because he was a gay man. Folks, we should be in a world where you are not judged because of your color, your sexual orientation, your religion. People are people. But again, until we start talking to one another and we realize, but that's the thing, we are so divisive now on so many levels that so many times we just can't get to the point where we can have that openness. And that's where I think my biggest gift is that people just see me as plain old Billie, and I do have a heart and I do walk the walk, but I'll talk the talk. But believe me, I'll get out there and make things happen and encourage people. Because believe me, it's the exponential effect. If I'm doing something nice and each of you are doing something nice, well, now we got 5 people, and 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 25. And you know what? Change, Oprah always says, sometimes change goes sideways. Well, we're no longer in that sideways moment. We're starting to go up. And there's no turning back now. There just isn't. For the first time in my life, I love seeing white people out holding Black Lives Matter. I love that. That I'm just very passionate that I hope it happens in my lifetime. I'm 61, although I've seen some good things happen, but this is a moment that there's no turning back from. So yeah, I'm all about bumping it up. I'm about the more we bump it up, the better off all of us are going to be.
Definitely, you're doing a great job of bumping it up. I don't want to leave Eric out there to dry, so I want Eric to share a little bit of his sense of what's going on in the world. And if Eric wants to crack some jokes, that's cool too, even though he's no longer doing the comedy thing. But I definitely enjoyed when I did see him perform. Actually met him at the time that I was involved with a young lady in Raleigh, and was actually with running to him at different shows, some that she was doing and some that he was doing on his own. But definitely was a great comedian there in the area. Hoping that he's going to get back into the comedy force. But right now he's doing doing the raising of the child. And tell us a little bit about the child as well, because I do know you have that young one.
Yeah. My daughter Avery, she's 2 years old. She's actually right in the other room. But yeah, so far just working. I work in tech, so just working. So it was interesting when you were talking about gentrification and people moving into Raleigh. Yeah, that's the other thing you're seeing in Raleigh is startups coming here, or startups or companies from the West Coast setting up. I mean, we were the final five for Amazon. Like Raleigh was the final five for Amazon, one of the finalists for Apple. So we're seeing a lot of growth, and I think this remote work, I don't think it's going away, and you're going to see it kind of affect. I think corporate real estate people are going to not like it for the next couple of years, because I think companies are going to look not to downsize people, but to downsize space they're in. Because I worked for two in the area, and when they redesigned the office, take into account that 30% won't be in the office. They'll either be working from home or sick or whatever. So I don't think I can fix everything in 60 seconds, but I'll try.
No, but you did a good job, and I definitely appreciate your comments and everything. And I agree with you about what's going on with the economy and the way that things are being done on the tech side. I'm actually wondering, because that's actually something I've been thinking about, because I live around the corner from Duke University, and I know that a lot of times they're talking about remote work or hybrid kind of thing happening on the university. So I'm seeing all those lovely buildings over there on Duke's campus. Billie's over there, went to UNC, and definitely you're over there in Raleigh, not that far from State. Yeah. I'm wondering how many of these great buildings that we're seeing are going to have to be converted to something else, because I'm thinking that a lot of those buildings are not going to be used for what they were used for in the past.
Yeah, I think remote work or remote e-learning, or I guess online learning, will make it into, definitely school and definitely college. But the other thing about college, though, is going to college is half about learning, but it's half about, it's a time where you can live by yourself with like very little consequences, because you don't get hangovers. You don't you can drink till 5 and wake up at 8. I drank on Saturday and couldn't get out of bed on Sunday. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, I think it will definitely hit all, technology hits all sectors. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens. I was just wondering, what have you learned as being a young parent? Like you said, you got that 2-year-old. That's the first time that you've been a parent. And I'm going to have Jillian give you some advice, because Jillian's got 2 kids, and she's definitely, I think she got her kids to some degree under control. Every time I see them out in public, they acted normal and acted like they're under control. But she's giving me that head like that's an illusion. It might not be actual fact. But I would like to know what you learned in the 2 years since you've had your child.
I've learned that having a child is the best thing. I'd never recommend. I cannot recommend anybody have a kid. It's just, I'm not one of those parents asking other parents when are you having kids. I'm saying, no, sleep in on Sunday. That's what you should be doing. Don't have kids unless you really, really want to have a kid.
I think great. That's completely reasonable. Yeah. If you really want to have a kid, then you should have one. And if you're kind of on the table, on the fence, like, don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's way too hard of work.
Your whole life. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I know.
So what advice, Jillian, and tell folks about your children, because like I said, I do have a great deal of respect for them. So tell them about your children, and also definitely what advice you would give Eric as the other parent on here.
Oh, wow. So my kids are 6 and 13, both boys. My 13-year-old's going into 8th grade, and online learning has been fine for him. He's kind of an introvert, enjoys he's referred to himself before as an inside person. So he's been doing okay. My 6-year-old, I think it's a lot harder for younger kids. They're used to being outside, running around with friends, and so I think he's having a little bit of a harder time with COVID and with all the restrictions and being stuck at home all the time. But they're both super sweet. I do recommend that people have kids, because I love babies and I'm not having any more babies. So I need other people to have babies so that I can cuddle them and pinch their little cheeks. So yeah, but I feel you on the, if you don't know this is what you want to do, because you can have kids or you can
get a Porsche.
Right. A lot of other things. Once you have kids, a lot of your life options are eliminated. So it does have to be something that you really want. But I do really enjoy being a parent, and I want my friends to all have babies because I need to cuddle them.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but I'm 58, so I think that unless I find myself some young woman out there, this friend, you're out of the camp, because like I said, I'm too old. Me and Billie, 58, 61. Yeah. Even if he didn't have that lifestyle that he does, it would still be out of the picture. So even if we could do adoption. So we could do adoption, and you could pinch the young teenagers or whatever that we might adopt. So that's a possibility. Eric, so you're saying that the Porsche is totally out of the possibilities for you now that you've got the kids? So no fast cars for you? You give up on fast cars?
I got a Nissan Rogue. That was I got the Sport though. I got the Rogue Sport to make it a little sportier. Yeah.
Close enough.
To give up on the whole concept of actually getting the sports car and things of that nature. So really quickly, I'm curious, just switching the topic a little bit, but what are places that they would love to go? Because IBM.TV is around the world. Of course, it's COVID, and we're in the pandemic, so we're not going anywhere right now. But whenever we get out of this, where are the places that are on your wish list? I know I've got a couple of places like Brazil, Costa Rica, Kenya, Australia. Those are on my wish list. But I'll start from, I guess I'll go left to right. So I'll start with you, Eric, then come to Jillian, and then go up to Billie. So what's on your wish list of places that you would like to visit?
Man, at this point in the quarantine, a bar. I mean, just going back out and being able to go and have a beer and not feel like it's like the apocalypse and it's weird. That would be amazing. But I think international, I mean, I'd like to go back to like Singapore. I think I like that. It was a good time when I went. So I'd like to maybe go to Singapore or just really anywhere outside the city of Raleigh. I think I'm not picky at this point. I don't care. I'll go to Durham just to get out. Just get out of the house.
Come on down.
Durham, I love Durham. Durham has great restaurants. I'll just
it's not exotic.
Yeah.
Before we get to Jillian, and I'd like to hear what Jillian's got to say. What are you thinking about those folks that are trying to like open up the bars there in Raleigh and are doing that whole thing of trying to get the bars open and are definitely sometimes they're wearing masks, sometimes they're not wearing masks. But I was just wondering what your thoughts are, because I definitely have seen on the news, haven't been to Raleigh in a while, but I've seen a number of folks that are trying to force those bars open and trying to have crowds, and they didn't look 6 feet apart to me. So Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad, right? Because if I'm a bar owner, I completely get it, especially if you're a bar owner that doesn't have food, because it's your livelihood. If you're a patron, if you want to go, then you got to take every precaution so it doesn't shut down again. That's what I don't like about people not wearing masks. It's like, well, you complained about everything getting shut down. They're telling you this is what you should do so everything can open up. So go, especially if you're going to a bar or restaurant that you like, then do everything in your power so they can keep going and keep making money and keep being around. It's really hard. Just be responsible. Just be responsible while you're being irresponsible.
Definitely. Jillian, so what's the places that you would like to go to? Have you snuck over there to the bar and everything? I know the other thing that I was glad to be able to do was I recently did go get my hair cut, so they did allow the barbers and everything in the last several months, so we were able to do that. And I've got a friend of mine that's got twists, and she actually got her twist done, I think about a week or two ago, was able to go to the salon and get it done. So definitely we are seeing some folks that are going to things that are being opened up. But in terms of where you would like to travel, where would that be?
Yeah, so I think I would go to a really nice Caribbean beach. I've been to the beach in Jamaica and in Cancun, and those are some of my favorite vacations. Also, I'd also be pretty happy, as Eric said, just to go to Raleigh at this point, because I haven't really left my house, more than a dozen times since the pandemic started. I've been, pretty pretty strict about staying at home. But yeah, once the COVID pandemic is over, I think a nice long beach vacation is definitely on the list for me.
Cool. And what has it been like doing city council meetings Zoom style? Because I actually saw the county commissioners of Wake County and watched them last week before doing my show, and it was interesting watching them have the meeting. They were actually talking to, I believe, the Wake County sheriff on Zoom, but it was like interesting watching that whole concept. So how has it been running the office and running the whole city, but doing it in the Zoom format?
Yeah, the thing that's really crazy is when we're just regularly in the council chambers, and they film the meeting. So it's always being broadcast. It's always on video, but they just focus the video in on whoever's talking. So you don't really have to worry about the video being on you if you want to like take a bite of something or like to have a drink or like get up and run to the bathroom. You're fine. It's looking at your colleagues. But with Zoom, they do it on the gallery mode. And so everyone's face is visible and being broadcast to to the internet and public access TV the entire time of the meeting. So the most challenging thing for me has been like, getting used to like being that visible, like every expression on my face. Like if I have to take a sip of water, I'll sometimes I'll turn off my camera and run to like, go to the bathroom or like take a bite of my sandwich or something. But yeah, you're always, your face is just like always up there on the screen. And so that's been super weird. I think our staff has adapted really well. Like they figured out the Zoom system really quickly. Our tech staff is fabulous, and they got us all going. So that's great. And, residents, I think, have adapted to it pretty well. Also, we've had public comment sessions on Zoom. We've had, lots of people call in and give us, talk to us and stuff. So it's been, I think we've adapted well. It's definitely weird. But we're getting used to it, and everything is weird right now, right? Like life's just weird. It's just going to be weird for a while.
And what's your wish list of places that you want to go visit, whether that's in Raleigh or in Durham? But what restaurant or bar do you want to go visit, or just place in general? I know I'm waiting for the Duke Gardens to open. It's still closed the last time I checked, so I'm waiting for them to open so I can actually walk around Duke Gardens, because it's kind of a shame when the bus goes by, you see the big sign that says we're closed, and I'm sitting there going like, no, but I need to walk in the garden at least for a minute.
Mark, as soon as it's good, I'm with Jillian. I'm going back to the Caribbean, having been there since right after college to Haiti, that we love cruising. I'm in the Caribbean 2 weeks to 3, once in a while a month, that will do cruising. And I like cruising because it gives me the opportunity that I've built relationships over these 35 years all over the Caribbean. And while people are out taking tours, which is great, I've swam with the dolphins or gone to the rum factory to visit. What I actually do is I go out to communities. When we were in Dominica, I visited a girls' school and did something where I'll visit an animal shelter, or I'll visit a church or a community center. And I'll plug, if you ever go to the Caribbean, you will be amazed at the number of these you see. Let me turn it up. It's the Bump It Up magnet. The color is orange. And anytime you see a magnet on something, you know that's a kind person. And it always cracks me up because I will mail these magnets out to the Caribbean, and I'll never forget one time I was in a shop and I see a Bump It Up magnet. And I'm like, where did you get that? And they go, well, so-and-so, that's a basket. Well, there's a family I've become friends with in the Bahamas that there's something they call microloans, where you lend money, but actually I don't lend it, I give it, but I let them think that they're getting lent it, but I want money back. And I've developed relationships with these people all over the Caribbean. So I grabbed myself some sun too, but as soon as the cruising industry's open again and I feel safe, and I don't think that'll be for a vaccine for me, a proven vaccine, but I want to go back and get some sun and visit some friends that I haven't seen for about 6 months now. It seems longer than that now, but yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to the Caribbean.
Well, I went on my first cruise, I think it was about a year and a half ago, and it was an interesting experience. It might have been a year and a half, it might have been 2.5 years, but it was the first time I had ever gone on a cruise, and I enjoyed the cruise, enjoyed the entertainment, enjoyed a lot of what was going on in the cruise, definitely enjoyed going to the places. It was to Puerto Rico, Grand Turks, and one of the Virgin Islands. I think it was the U.S. Virgin Islands, so definitely went on that cruise. I think there was supposed to be a fourth place. It was like one of the cruise islands. So, sometimes the cruises will own islands, but that, unfortunately, the weather got choppy and we didn't make it to that stop. But I remember going on that cruise, and while I love the cruise and while I love that environment, I'm with you. I wanted to go see more of the actual people, like the people from the community and not just the cruise spots. And the other thing that I did not like about cruises is that while I'm a big fan of conversation and talking to people and meeting new people and everything, there are some real hard salesmen in the art department that will try to get you to buy stuff all day long, as well as in the different restaurants that they've got going on. So there are some real hard salespeople that are there trying to get you to buy a little bit of everything. So I think I've got a print. It might be a cartoon character or something that they finally talked me into buying something. So I had to buy the thing that was the cheapest. So I did get talked into buying something eventually. So I did get something that was mailed to me from that trip. So definitely that's my only thing is I agree with kindness and being kind at all times, but sometimes those salespeople are not all that kind.
But Mark, let me tell you something I noticed about cruising, and I picked up on this. When I'm on cruise ships, I give out Starbucks cards. I always say if a cup of coffee could solve all the problems of the world, I give out $5 Starbucks cards like candy all the time for no reason. It just has the mission statement in it. If you're ever in the position to do something for somebody, be it of your time or money, do it without expecting anything in return. But I do things on the ship, and I put magnets on doors, and they don't know who did it. And they'll Google the Bump experiment. And what amazes me, there'll be magnets all over these cruise ships, and people start talking about it or whatever. And they'll say, why is this magnet on the door? But I find on cruise ships that we don't care about what we look like, where we live, how we dress. We represent all different types of people, everything, and we're kind and respectful, and we're on vacation. And I always wonder why these same people that we're friendly to on a cruise ship and kind to, that when we return to the real world, we may not speak to those same people that when we're on vacation. Then I think we need to be on vacation all the time, because it will be a much better place if we're on vacation and treat each other like we're on vacation all the time.
Yeah. But that's true, because you do wind up talking a lot more to your strangers when you're out on vacation. I remember the one that I went on, there was actually a group of folks that I would never expect to have met in the real life. It was a group of, I believe, Mennonites, and nobody would expect Mennonites to be on a cruise, but they were actually, there's like a ritual within the Amish and the Mennonite culture, and I forget which one it is, but they basically have like a year time where they're given to view the world and see the world and experience the world, because afterwards they're going to grow in and live in that more confined kind of environment. So they have that kind of period going on. So they were out there doing all kinds of things that they probably are not doing now, because both of the COVID and also because of their family, their culture and the way that their culture is. I know that both Eric and Jillian have got to get ready to go, and we're going to wrap up Cherry shortly anyway. But before we wrap everything up, and me and Billie will stick around for a few minutes, but before we wrap up everything, I want to hear from Jillian and Eric. Any final thoughts that they've got, any messages that they want to share with the world as they're listening to us right here on this show. So anything that you would like to share with the folks that are listening, I would greatly love to hear that. So if you've got any final comments that you'd like to share just about what we're going through and just words of encouragement, then that's what I'm looking for from the two of you now. So I'll start with you, Jillian, since I know you got a meeting first.
Oh, thoughts with the world, the whole world, Mark, the entire world. I don't know. Wear a mask.
Well, if you want to put it more specifically to Durham or North Carolina, definitely wear a mask. But if you got any words of encouragement.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to have you on. You were definitely a great guest. I know that Sree was probably following you. So if you look at your Twitter account, you probably got another follower, and he is a worldwide digital media person, and he does these regular talks. And so you may be getting an invitation to his show in the very near future as well, because I had told him about you some time back, and I know he's always looking for folks to talk about what's going on in the parts of the world. Thank you, Mark. You're the best. Bye. Great to meet y'all.
Bye, Jillian.
Me too.
Pleasure. Eric, what you got to say? Definitely any words of encouragement for those of us that definitely want to get back to the sports world? You got any thoughts as to when we're going to have sports again? Are we going to have sports again?
Yeah, she took mine. I was going to say, wear your mask so we can see what Cam's going to do in New England and what Brady's going to do in Tampa Bay. So wear your mask so we can see what happens.
We'll see what happens, and definitely I'm looking forward to that, seeing what happens there. Do you have any picks in the NBA? Because they're talking about trying to do a tournament in the bubble. So do you have any thoughts as to who's going to win that? Is it going to be the Clippers? Because I went to school with Doc Rivers. So, of course, I'm rooting for the Clippers. Is it going to be the Lakers? I know there are a lot of Laker fans out there. Or is it going to be a dark horse?
I'm not the biggest NBA fan. I don't follow it as much, but I will say with setting up this tournament, this would be the year of a dark horse because you don't have to play an entire season. You just got to get hot at the right time, and everybody's in the same tournament. So I would say, if you're going to look at a favorite, you'd look at someone like the Lakers, but this may be the year of the dark horse. Maybe Cleveland will bring another one in. Who knows?
That'll be interesting to see if Cleveland can do it. And it has been interesting seeing what sports jump onto the bandwagon first. I think NASCAR was one of the early sports that got going. Definitely some of the other sports that are not as well known. Well, actually, NASCAR is pretty well known, but definitely wasn't like basketball, football, or I know baseball is getting ready to get started. But like I mentioned earlier, minor league is shut down. But definitely, I'm just curious as to see how all of these teams play out. I know that even in hockey, Toronto basically said, nope, we don't want United States teams coming. I mean, Canada said we don't want U.S. teams coming up here. So that being said, Toronto, I guess, will have to play in either Florida or Buffalo or someplace like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I would say hockey and football is going to be the hardest because they have the biggest teams. I mean, if you look at football, you have 22 players on each team, plus backups, plus coaches, plus coordinators, plus assistants. That's a huge mess of people to have to test. And, basketball, of course, had less people. Baseball has less people. Hockey, they're about the same as basketball. So I think once we see that we can do it with football, I think then we know, okay, I think sports are going to be okay.
Yep, that's what I'm hoping. I know we had Amy Lawrence on one of my other podcasts, and she's definitely a well-known sportscaster and does a lot of sportscasting stuff. And she was saying that even she was getting tired of not being able to watch her baseball and some of her other sports. So definitely, hopefully we'll be able to turn on our TV and see the sports that we're used to. But I definitely appreciate you being on here, Eric. So definitely have to get you back on at some point and share some of your insight and things of that nature. So definitely appreciate you being on here.
Love to. Well, thank you, Mark. See you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye. All right, Billy, it's just me and you as we wind down and everything. Got about another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll call it wraps and everything. But same thing I asked them. What are your last thoughts that you would like to share with folks in terms of a powerful message that you would like to give folks, and just your thoughts as to what's going on in the world and ways that you would like to see things improved? And definitely, as I told you before, I had many of our producers as well as some of our other show hosts on, and I told them about the bump experiment and things of that nature. So they were definitely very much interested in the concept. They loved the idea of trying to be kind, because I was telling them, because sometimes they would get into those arguments and I'd be like, no, y'all are not following Billy's rules. We need y'all to be kind to each other. So if you would just share your final thoughts.
Mark, thanks for having me, first of all. And I'd like to encourage any and everybody to go to the bump experiment and find out that the cool thing I like about the bump experiment is it's not the Billy experiment, or there's a young man who has the same heart and passion that I do. His name's Alex, that I found out he's going to be taken over, or once I pass this earth. And Alex is in his 20s and has the same passion that I do. And I always tell people it only takes one person to make a difference. And I'd like to tell people, in spite of everything that's going on right now, don't give up hope. More than ever, I have seen people stepping up and doing things for people they don't know, that there is an innate kindness that has come out that gives me more than hope, and that this is a moment of change. And maybe there's a reason all of this is happening, folks. And so I just would encourage everybody to take the time to remember, there's no such thing as a little act of kindness and a big act of kindness. They're all equal. And this is the moment. This is the moment to make a difference in spite of everything. And I still believe there is far more good that goes on in this world than bad. And that we need to practice a sense of gratitude and to think of each other now more than ever, and to get involved. We think that because of COVID that we can't get involved. Folks, there's so many ways you can still get involved, to donate to a canned good, or to help volunteer, dropping off something or doing something. Or I love all these things where people are having birthdays or or coming home from hospitals, and there's neighbors. And I listened this morning about 100 people showed up with pets the other day, showing by a young boy's home for his birthday because he loved dogs. And so strangers drove from 45 minutes away. If that doesn't tell you that there are far more people than care that don't care, and just to take the time to talk, and don't let all these things that you think that are differences amongst you, if you find out and talk to somebody long enough, you find out that you're both experiencing the same joy, or unfortunately, you might find out that the very person that you may have a bias against, that both of you have kids who are going through cancer right now, or a family member. And in that moment, you are sharing hope and joy that things are going to be okay for your kids. You're not caring what religion, what race, what you're caring, because you're both going through an experience, or you're celebrating the same joys. And if people can just reach that bond of realizing we are more alike than different, folks, we so much are. So quit looking at the outside in, looking at people, but look from the inside out. Just take the time to care, and remember that one act of kindness, you might be the 17-year-old that got the $2,000 who has spent his lifetime trying to make a difference because of one person. And I'd like to believe, because of Bump's kindness, that I have helped touch the lives of many, who in turn will touch the lives of far many more. And that when people say that, wow, I think the world sucks, they say, I disagree, because you're not going to believe what happened to me today. And that one moment just might be that moment that person needs, that sets the path for his or her life.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. As I was telling one of our producers, Kim Calhoun, on this show, because she'd asked me where I had my bracelet yesterday on one of our other shows, because we'll sometimes pop in there and things. And I did not have it yesterday, but I did have it today. So I do have my bump bracelet on. So I definitely have my bump bracelet on. So just wanted to let you know the bump bracelet is here. So I did have my bump bracelet on, and I'm definitely sharing that message, and was sharing it on our other shows as well. I know that a lot of what we talk about here is trying to bridge the divide. That's part of what IBM TV is about, whether it's bridging the cultural divides, the financial divides, or the various other divides as well. So I can speak for all of our producers and everything. I would love to have you come back on, and maybe even bring you on to some of our other shows as well, because I do think that the message that you're putting out there is a very powerful message, and one that we need to have going on in a regular basis. And I know that Shaquille, who's out of Australia, he was talking about that as well, because he was talking about how he finds that there's not as much divide as we think there is in the country, because when he comes from Australia and other places, he sees a lot of people that if he stops in at a restaurant, they can have a conversation. They might be on different sides of the political spectrum, as you mentioned, or they might even have different religious views or different other things, but they're able to have a conversation, able to have a very powerful conversation, and share a lot of their life experiences together, and at the end be fairly good friends and everything. So that's one of the things that Shaquille was talking about.
I tell people again that you don't have to agree or approve of everything. You don't have to agree or approve of someone's religion or their politics, or you don't have to agree or approve of any or everything. But everybody deserves kindness, respect, and equality. And I think so many times we've become divided that we've lost that sense of kindness, that sense of respect, and that sense of equality. And it's okay to not have somebody winning or losing. And we have this idea that, folks, we're in this world together. So when one of us in this world is suffering, we all are suffering at some point. And when one of us experiences joy, we all experience a joy, and we're winning. So if we can learn that we're a team globally, locally, in our state, nationally, and globally, I can tell you that we know from analytics that the bump experiment is in well over 17 countries. Now, I'd like to think it's in even more now. I haven't actually honestly checked. You know, I don't care about numbers. I care about kindness. And I just believe that kindness is universal. And you don't have to speak someone's language, religion, their race, their economics to be kind. We all it's an exhilarating feeling, no matter who you are, to experience kindness. But I'll tell you this, I get a whole lot more joy out of giving, because there's nothing better than knowing that you've done something that just it brightens someone's day. I spoke to somebody I pulled off the road about 2 or 3 months ago. I was stuck in traffic and stopped at a barbecue place. And I walked in there, and there were all white people except for one black woman in there. And I said, "Hey, how are you?" And she goes, "I've been in here 15 minutes, and you're the first person to say hello to me." And I said, "Well, have you said hello to somebody else?" And she laughed, and she goes, "Well, no." And we started talking, and I said, that's our thing. So often we're thinking it's because we're black, we're Presbyterian, I drive this car or that car. Sometimes it has nothing to do with, it's okay for you to say hello too, that we wait for the person to make the first move. Folks, don't wait for first move to say hello. Just say hello to somebody. There's a saying that Joel Osteen uses, you never know who your gatekeeper is. You never know who that person is that could help you. You never know. So again, I don't care what your title is, where you live, what you drive. I don't care anything about you, Mark, except I want to know what you do to make a difference. And if you just told me I spent the day, I let 5 people in front of me today. 5? Oh my gosh. Because how many times have we wanted to get out of a space or something, you go, "Oh, thank you so much." And I tell folks, in the old days, we used to acknowledge people by waving or nodding. We don't do that very much. That's okay. I say you bank your kindness when something good happens to you. It's not that you do something to get something back, but that's not like a coincidence. That's just your kindness bank, because you just give. And sometimes just great things happen out of the blue, just as the good Lord shining down saying, "Thank you for caring." So always take the time to care. You never know how that one hello could be the only hello that person gets and could make all the difference in the world to them today.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I can't remember the movie, but I remember there was a movie that was out during the blaxploitation kind of era of movies. And it was a movie where the people actually literally stumbled across a picnic. And when they were at that picnic, they became part of that picnic because they were, I think they might have been on the run or something like that, but they wanted to actually get involved and try to find, and they just stumbled across a picnic. So they pretended like they were that person's cousins or that person's relatives, and they actually got involved in there by just popping into the scene, because it was like I said, it was a movie, so it wasn't real life. But I'm sure people do that in real life too, where they pop there and they say that they're a part of a family. I know that there are even folks that are doing sad occasions, whether that's a funeral or whether that's a baby shower or whatever, or even weddings, that they pop into those events because they don't know those people from anybody, but they just want to be part of that environment, and they just like say, hey. In some cases, they might even be thinking that it's a good meal that they're going to have, so they might be claiming to be a relative for that reason. But I do know that sometimes people pop into various things that happen in our life, and they are not connected to the people that are doing that event. I work at a cultural arts center, and I know that there have been people that have been popped into those events that were not invited just because they wanted to enjoy whatever that event was, if they were invited events. Of course, some of the events were open to the public, but I'm talking about like private events. But yeah, I've definitely seen people pop into events and enjoy it. And a lot of times, sometimes folks will be unkind and usher them out or run them away if they feel that they are impeding on them. But I've also seen people do what you're saying. They have basically welcomed them into the environment, been like, look, I don't know you. You're not part of our invite list, but we've got a little bit extra here. Come on in. So definitely, I think that is something that we need more of, is more of that kind of communications around the world. So definitely, I thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being part of all of this. Thank you very much.
Cool. Well, I definitely, like I said, I hope to have Billie back on to talk about the bump experiment on not just my show, but some of the other IBM.TV shows. I know we've got some amazing shows that happen. We just did our Economic Mondays. We'll have our Celebrity Tuesdays. So I think Henning will be talking about a movie that he's involved in, and it's actually helping some of the young folks there in California by getting them involved in these movies. And a lot of the movies are about trying to have a very positive nature. I know that there's no drugs or alcohol involved in the movie at all, even though it's a coming-of-age movie. But he just wanted to encourage people to give a positive message. So he definitely doesn't have those in the movie, those kind of imagery. So he'll be on our show, I believe, tomorrow, or on the station tomorrow. And then, of course, Thursdays, we have Podcasters Thursdays, and we'll be talking to the gaming community at the latter hour of that. So at the 1 o'clock hour, I believe the gaming community will be joining us. And then my friend Zach does his funk music show on Saturday, as well as Tish has a show that talks about a lot of planting the seed. And planting the seed is a lot of times planting the seed of kindness, or planting the seed of just trying to like develop and grow in a positive way. So Tish Oakley does a great job with that show. She told me that she's had a couple of very positive kind of folks, but she's going to have another positive person, but they're going to bring the warrior spirit. So sometimes you have to have the warrior from within as well. So the warrior spirit will be what she'll be talking about, and she'll have somebody that is part of that kind of environment. And then on Sunday, we've got some other great shows. My friend Zach, once again, has one other show, Funk Music with Zach. And then we've got an open kind of conversation that sometimes takes place. And then Alexandria May, who's out of South Africa, does the music cafe. So she's got musicians. She actually had musicians from around the globe on several of her shows. So she's in South Africa, but she spent some time in Nashville. And then she's had guests from around the world on her show. So always some amazing conversations there. So just some great programming here. I've actually get ready to go have a very late lunch because I did not have lunch already. So I'm here to have a late lunch. And then I've got my other podcast as well, Straight Talk with Dean and Marc, which is our call-in show on another platform. But I'm going to do that very shortly. I've given Billie the call-in number. Hopefully he'll call in on that show as well if he's able to. But definitely if he's able to, he'll join us. Otherwise, we've got some musicians and some other folks that will be joining us on that conversation from 7 to 9. So like I said, I don't know what Billie's schedule is. So the rest of the day, but if you want to jump in on that conversation, we'll be glad to have him in there as well. But right now, we're going to wrap up this show. Definitely everybody on this show has said, wear those masks, be safe, be very much conscious of what is going on around your world. And definitely, as Billie would say, be kind to others. Definitely, I think you should be kind to others, not just our other living human beings, but I am also a big advocate. And I had a special guest on yesterday in a special show that we did. They were talking about being kind to Mother Nature and to our animal kingdom as well. Because I think that we have to be kind to all of the universe, not just those of us that are occupying the human form, but also the animals and just Mother Nature in general. So I would urge us to be kind to all that is in there in the universe. So definitely, I think that that's something that we can all work on together. And if we do that, it'll be a better world. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up, and I hope that everybody has a pleasant afternoon. Hopefully you're not eating as late as I am in terms of eating lunch, but I hope you are having a pleasant afternoon, and I will hear some of you, since it is not a visual environment, but I will hear some of you on the call-in show at 7 o'clock on Blog Talk Radio. But right now, I'm getting to head on out, and I think Billie's getting to head on out too. I don't know what he's got on the rest of his plate for this afternoon, but we are looking forward to seeing you again next week, because we'll have some more amazing guests next week as well. I know I've lined up some shows all weekend long that involve everybody from political figures to some artists to some and when I say artists, I mean out of the creative community, because I think most of those that I've been talking to have been authors and musicians and people along that line. But definitely some great guests are already in the works for the next several Mondays. And I look forward to y'all joining me at 2 p.m. to hear these great and inspirational conversations.
Thank you, Marc. Bump it up.
Thank you. And as he said, bump it up.